It'd be surprising if it weren't so expected. When you don't play with urgency, you get what you deserve. And the Magic have gotten everything they've deserved this year. Today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is April 12th. It will be April 13th, 2026. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season, coming to you from TD Garden. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, the Orlando Magic come out once again with inconsistent urgency that eventually overwhelmed them. How the Magic fumbled the 7 seed in the Eastern Conference and now have to go on the road to make their playoff bed. And why the Celtics are just champions, teaching the Magic yet another critical lesson that this team hasn't quite learned yet. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. I tell you, I'm surprised by the Orlando Magic dropping this game to the Boston Celtics 113-108. I would tell you that. If we haven't watched games that played out exactly like this over and over and over again. We have 82 games of data, 81 entering today, but we have 81 games of data that tell us who this team is and what they're about and what they have done their entire time in this league, or what they've done their entire time this season. We have seen a team from the very beginning of the season that has not been about its defense, that loses communication, loses connection, that when shots don't go in, when things go wrong, they fall apart. We've seen a team that has looked nothing like the team that made everyone love them over the last 2 seasons. And certainly the talent on this team brought, and deservedly brought, expectations to a higher level. The fact that the Magic did not meet, well, they met one expectation. They did improve their wins. They went from 41 to 45 wins. Big whoop. But the amount of capital and the amount of money the Magic spent on this team and how the Magic invested in this team, you expect more. It doesn't matter who your opponent is, and I do want to highlight what the Celtics did tonight. It doesn't matter who your opponent is, who might be playing, who might not be playing. It does not matter. When you have your full complement of players, Paolo, Banchero, Franz Wagner, Desmond Bane for however long they had him, we'll get to that, Wendell Carter, Jalen Suggs, Anthony Black, Tristan DeSilva, when you have your full group of players, you should have enough. And the fact of the matter is, despite the talent on this team, despite everything this team has shown that they are capable of being, they have also shown us how inconsistent they are. The Magic are the 8 seed because of things they did. They made their own bed this year. I don't want to hear the East is better. The East is better. The Magic should have been better too. They've shown us that time and time and time again this year, only to fumble the bag, only to fumble the ball. And again, we're going to give the Boston Celtics their flowers as an organization and as a team, but this loss hangs heavy on the Orlando Magic because it is the same kind of listless, frustrating lack of urgency that led to a 52-point loss to the Toronto Raptors. It is the same frustrating lack of execution, belief, and trust that led to not inbounding the ball against the Los Angeles Lakers and giving up that Luke Kennard 3. It is the same frustrating lapse in defensive awareness that led to the blowout wins over the blowout losses to the Detroit Pistons and Philadelphia 76ers way back early at the beginning of the season when they went 1-4. Nothing the Magic showed in game 82 is not anything we haven't seen for the good chunk of this season. To a team that lost to the Wizards, to a team that lost to the Pacers a couple weeks back, to a team that needed overtime to beat the Wizards after leading by 50, to a team that has shown enough grit and determination to come from behind even just a week ago against New Orleans Pelicans. This is a team that has always been playing with fire. And when you play with fire, you get burned. So here it is. Here's the burn mark. Here, the burn mark. The Orlando Magic have to go on the road in the 7-8 game. They have to go to Philadelphia. They're going straight to Philadelphia. They're not coming home. They don't deserve to come home until they have to. They have to play their way in without all the advantages that they had tried to set themselves up with because they made their bed and now they have to lie in it. And everyone has to take responsibility for it. Jamal Mosley deciding to give Desmond Bane a day off, a deserved day off, don't get me wrong, playing all 82 games, but giving one of his key players a day off, even if it was deserved, even if it was needed, in a game the Magic had to win with stakes, inexcusable. The Magic turning the ball over 19 times, 19 turnovers, leading to so many Celtics points off turnovers that I have to make sure I grab it. I don't think I have it. To make those mistakes, self-inflicted wounds, simply inexcusable. I want to give the Boston Celtics their credit, and I'm going to. I really think it's important that we talk about why the Boston Celtics did what they did and why the Magic did not. I think it's really important that we get to that point. But again, 23 points off 19 turnovers. You only score 11 off Boston 17. A game that you led for the majority of the first half, holding a somewhere between 7 and 11 point lead for a good chunk of the first half. To go into the locker room with the lead and then come out in the third quarter after I just said how great they were in third quarters during this win streak and get beat 42-20. In that third quarter alone, the Magic gave up 9 3-pointers, 9 for 16 from 3, while Orlando shot 1 for 8 from 3, 7 for 21 from the floor overall, and 5 for 6 from the foul line. They had 5 turnovers in that quarter. This is as much about what Orlando has been unable to do and what hasn't clicked for this team all season than it is what Boston did. And again, everyone's to blame. Everybody deserves blame. Jamal Mosley for just that baffling decision with Desmond Bane. Absolutely. Orlando taking 43 threes. That's not their game. That's not who they are. Yes, Jalen Suggs made 7 for 15, nearly bailed the team out with 23 points, including the game-tying 3 with about 35 seconds left. Orlando was down by as much as 15. They still fought their way back. They just, we could give them credit for that, but it doesn't matter if you don't win because this time of year is all about winning. And quite frankly, the Magic just don't make winning plays. They don't make winning plays. They don't play winning basketball. Because all of these mistakes, the poor shooting, Paolo was 7 for 22. He admitted after the game he didn't play his best game. Had a triple-double, but also had 6 turnovers. Teammates weren't ready for passes. Teammates weren't looking for passes. They were waiting for Paolo to save them, and I was waiting for Paolo to save them too, and he didn't have it in him. You got 6 turnovers from Paolo, 4 from Jalen Suggs. That's 10 of your 19 coming from your 2 main ball handlers. Franz Wagner's clearly not healthy. He's clearly not 100%. He's trying to push through it. He's trying to fight through it, but he's giving you all he can, and it's not enough. Everyone else was absent. We'll get to the box score, but this is a team that when things get hard, they break. When the going gets tough, they don't know where to turn. They don't. And when you play even an undermanned connected team, because Chicago wasn't connected, the teams the Magic have been playing for the last five games weren't connected. Detroit was the only one, and Orlando pounced on them, and Detroit didn't have it. And then all of a sudden, you saw the Pistons find it. They got within 4. That's the bigger point. The difference between the Magic and the Celtics is exactly what Boston did tonight. And I think that's where we got to sit and think about things. Because champions win no matter what. I want to make that point coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, especially this great TD Garden. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part is not always simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs with the fans. You can pull up the game. I'm going to be heading to Philadelphia here. I might be heading there tomorrow. I haven't decided if I'm going to Philadelphia on Monday or if I'm going to wait for Tuesday to fly up. But the Flyers play on Tuesday. That's why the Magic have to wait till Wednesday for their 7-8 game. That's just delaying the inevitable, it feels like. But if you're like me, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to go to the Flyers game on Tuesday. Well, Game Time is your ticket to the game. You get all-in pricing up front. So the price you see on the app is the price you pay. You'll be able to see your view from the seat before making any decision, so you can see exactly what the view is, and your zone deals allow you to choose a section, and Game Time picks the seats so you can save. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. We want to thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't done so already, join our Everydayer Club. With the Everydayer Club, you get the ad-free audio of this show, so you can get rid of those pesky ads. Plus, members-only Discord access, so you can chat with other Magic as well as other NBA fans. I provide my 3 thoughts after every quarter. So we have the play-in game coming up on Wednesday. I'll give you my thoughts after every single quarter of that play-in game. Just join at lockedonmagic.supercast.com. That's lockedonmagic.supercast.com. Winning begets winning. A good culture that is about winning leads to more wins. We saw this last year. When Orlando had all those injuries early in the season, and their culture and their identity was so ingrained that they could beat good teams. They could beat the Celtics team, in fact, with Cole Anthony, Trevelyan Queen, Mo Wagner, with those players leading the way, with their bench players leading the way. It's a credit to coaching. It is a credit to philosophy. It is a credit to just complete and utter buy-in. When you look at a team like the Boston Celtics tonight, they sat Jason Tatum. They sat Jaylen Brown. They sat their top 7 guys. They had the minimum 8 players available tonight. And Ron Harper Jr. got hurt at some point, didn't play for much of the second half. It did not matter, because you know exactly how the Boston Celtics are going to play. You know exactly what they're going to do, and talent gets you a long way. Do not get me wrong. You need talent to win at the highest levels of this league, because you're going to be playing other teams that are bought in, that believe in their identity, that trust each other, that do all the things you have to do to win. Talent matters in this league. But in one game, on any given night, you catch a team that doesn't believe, you catch a team that doesn't buy in, you get a game like this. If you thought the Boston Celtics were just going to roll over and give this game away, that the Magic weren't going to we're just going to coast through this game, you have another thing coming. I still expected the Magic to win this game by double digits, but I expected it to be a fight. I expected that it was going to come down to the Magic doing exactly what they did Friday in Chicago and having to pull away in the second half. I was expecting Boston to have a stretch where they made a ton of threes, because they take so many and they know who's good. They know the skills that they're looking for, and they have an offensive system that gets those threes open. But any offensive system is only as good as the execution you run it through. Yes, the Orlando Magic successfully ended the streak tonight. They had a top 20 offense. Big whoop. But you watch the Magic run their offense, they don't trust it. And that's the #1 reason why Jamal Mosley is going to be gone at the end of the season. There are several reasons to pile on top of that over the course of this season. But the Magic do not have a championship level offense. And they were able to get away with that because their defense was at an elite level. Well, guess what? We can complain all we want about the offense. This team is where it's at because their defense is average. Because when push came to shove in this third quarter, the Magic let go of the rope. The Magic couldn't figure out how to defend Boston's three-point schematics. They couldn't communicate their way out of the problems, and Boston kept putting them in spots where they had to choose between two bad decisions against a team that was going to punish them for whichever decision they made. 19 turnovers for me, and the amount of turnovers that Paolo has had this season is a product of a team that does not trust what they're running, that's trying to do too much because they don't know what they're trying to do. And we saw this throughout the course of the season. When you start taking key players out, that lack of trust becomes greater. And again, that's why the Magic are 8th. That's why we're sitting here getting ready for a trip to Philadelphia. That's why we are not preparing for a playoff series right now. That's why we're in the play-in. The team is too talented to miss the play-in. They're too talented to be in the play-in, but they're too talented to miss the play-in. They have not been good enough for long enough to be where they hope to be. And I've said this before, this whole season has felt like they believe this would be easy. This whole season has been played as if everything was going to be handed to them and given to them. This whole season has been played as if everything was given and not taken. You watch Joe Mazzulla and his team. They've been a 2 seed. They've been one of the best teams in the league for pretty much the last decade. They fight for everything. Their guys miss games. They don't miss a beat. They play the same way. They may not be able to win as often because they'll face teams that are just as good or just as able to execute. The Magic aren't like that. The Magic aren't a winning organization right now. The Celtics won a championship 2 years ago. So there's institutional knowledge baked into the team. You know, we talked about this after the Magic lost to the Detroit Pistons on March 1st. The Pistons are a team that trusts and knows who they are. At some point, they may face some of the same doubts and struggles that Orlando's facing this year. But the reason why they were able to go 8-3 in the games that Cade Cunningham missed is because of how much they trust and believe in everything they've been doing. Maybe if Orlando had come out strong at the start of the season, maybe if the Magic were in that 4-5 game, they'd be playing a lot differently. They have the talent. But the fact of the matter is, this is not a championship level team. Because championship teams and frankly, championship players win and believe no matter what. I don't want to throw everyone completely under the bus. They fought their way back in this game. They're down 15. Things were looking real bleak. They scratched and clawed their way back into this game. They tied the game with 35 seconds left. Luka Garza made an insane 3. And at that point, this is why I say you avoid close games. At that point, it's just about making and missing shots. Luka Garza made a difficult 3 with no space over Wendell Carter. Franz Wagner missed a bad 3. And then Paolo Banchero missed a bad 3, or whoever took that bad 3 after that. I'd be fine if this was just about making and missing shots. Because the Magic missed a lot of shots. Things just snowball because this team doesn't trust and doesn't believe. And again, Paolo's had a triple-double tonight. But Paolo's had this weird, difficult season where he can't take over games. Maybe that's not who he is. Maybe that isn't the type of player he is, but the Magic needed Paolo to be a superstar and take over this game. Force his way to the foul line, calm everybody down, and he didn't. I'm not saying he can't learn how to do that. He's still very, very young. The Magic played with one arm behind their back, not playing Desmond Bane. That hurt. Anthony Black and Franz Wagner are clearly not healthy. These are all excuses. They're legitimate reasons. They're legitimate things, but the Magic don't have the identity and the culture right now. That the culture that Jamal Mosley's built has crumbled this season. This team is nothing like the teams that Jamal built the last 4 years. I can't explain why. I don't know why. Their offense is better. Maybe they truly thought this was going to be too easy. Maybe they truly thought this was going to be easy, and it hasn't been, and they haven't responded to that. And their coach hasn't been able to put them in spaces to make it easy. He hasn't been able to scheme his way to a solution. Everyone's at fault here because effort's on the players. Effort and urgency are on the players. What they have works. What they have was good enough to win tonight. For as much as it's not ideal, as much as it's not going to win in the playoffs, as much as it's clear that it's time for a little bit of a change there, they had enough to win this game. Again, they lost by 5. They were tied with 35 seconds left. They blew this game. They're up by 9, 10 points for most of the first half. They blew this game. They let go of the rope for so long in that third quarter. It was inexcusable. It was a team that wasn't mentally tough. And that does reflect a little bit on the coach. Don't get me wrong. Everybody has had a hand in the disaster that has been this season. And if you want to be a championship team, if you want to be that level of team, you got to find a way. No matter what, you've got to find a way. And tonight, the Magic couldn't. Because they're not the Boston Celtics. They're not that level of confidence. They're not that level of cohesion. They're not that level of trust. They're not that level of belief. It's been this way all season. I tell you, I was surprised. Jason Beatty, Orlando Sentinel, and I were talking to Boston media before the game, and we all said, the Magic could easily lose this game. We'd be more shocked by a 30-point win than they would by a loss. And I honestly, listener, ask yourself that question. Would a 30-point win shock you more than what happened tonight? I think that answers very clearly, yeah, a 30-point win would have shocked you. They've lost games like this all season long. Let's burn through the box score before we burn it completely. We'll talk about who showed up, who didn't, what went wrong, and more coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here. The postseason is here, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here's what I like about it. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars and role players and key moments. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. I don't know if there's a line out for this game yet, but let's take a look. Let's take a look because the Orlando Magic will have to wait till Wednesday to play their play-in game against the Philadelphia 76ers. Fortunately for us, there is a line. Sixers are favored by 1. Sixers are 1-point favorites. So this is a toss-up game. As bad as tonight feels, Magic will be right in the game on Tuesday. So we'll see, or on Wednesday, excuse me. So we'll see what happens. Head to FanDuel.com to get started now. FanDuel, play your game. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is also brought to you by our friends over at TurboTax. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you are getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment today. As we do after every game, win, lose, or disappointingly gut-wrenching knife through the heart loss, let's run through the box scores. The Orlando Magic fall to the Boston Celtics 113-108. Again, this game just came down to the Magic needed players to step up, play with some urgency, play with some intensity, and they would have won the game. Maybe they wouldn't have won it by as much as you would have liked them to. But Orlando, I thought, through the first half of the game, played pretty strong defense. I was really impressed with the Magic's defense throughout, especially through the early parts of the game. For the game in total, Orlando finished with a 107.6 defensive rating. So defense was not really the problem. They let go of the rope a little bit in the fourth quarter. 19 for 53-point shooting for the Celtics. Again, 23 points off 19 turnovers. They gave up 9 for 16 shooting in the third quarter, a 42-20 third quarter. Orlando won the fourth quarter 27-19. So they started making stops and started getting themselves going. But again, it's all the same problems. It's the poor shooting, it's inconsistency in attacking, it's losing faith and trust in each other, losing faith and trust in what they're running, even if what they're running is not ideal. I'm not going to sit here and say this offense is brilliant. You just got to run it better. The offense does not put guys in the best positions. There's very few Paolo post-ups. There's very few, like, Wendell Carter gets a switch onto a guard, get him the ball in the post. There's very few of these taking advantage of mismatches, and I tried explaining this to people. One of the problems with this offense is it is not designed to attack mismatches like that. It's really not. And that is a huge problem, because how many times does Paolo get a guard on him and he's trying to break him down off the dribble instead of passing it, ducking into the paint, again, clear the center out, but ducking into the paint, getting to the block and trying to post up, or frankly, setting up a pick and roll somewhere so you can get him on the move going up against smaller players, especially if Wendell Carter is going to be a shooting threat. Let's start with Paolo's game. Paolo did good things. I thought his intention most of the night was right. I don't want to throw this game completely on him. 23 points, 7 for 22 shooting, over 5 from 3, 9 for 11 from foul line. He admitted after the game he probably should have played he could have played a little bit better. 10 rebounds, 11 assists, 4 offensive rebounds. Like, he was active. Like, for a game where he didn't shoot the ball particularly well, Paolo tried to make things happen. He did not have it tonight. And we're used to Paolo stepping up in these big games. To have a triple-double, to me, that tells me he is trying to do the right things. Could he have been more efficient? Absolutely. Could he have made some better decisions with the ball in his hands? Absolutely. He made some killer turnovers. Again, 6 turnovers a lot. The Magic have had this problem where they're like high assist guys. They're also high turnover guys, and they have high assist, high turnover games. Paolo needed to play better, but I thought he did all he could on a night where he just didn't have it. And again, like, the thing about this is when one guy doesn't have it, someone else has to step up. Franz Wagner had, and besides that, the Magic were +2 in his minutes, so it wasn't a plus-minus problem. Franz Wagner, he had 20 points, 7 for 18 shooting, 2 for 7 from 3, 4 for 4 from the foul line. Franz just looks tired. I think he's running at like 60, maybe 65%. He just looks a step off on his drives. He doesn't have quite the explosiveness coming out of his Euro steps that he usually does to finish at the rim and finish with those layups. And he just gets gassed really quickly. Look, anything the Magic, and then he played 26 minutes, which is his high since coming back. Anything the Magic can get from Franz Wagner, they will take. But honestly, like, the play that defined the game for me is Orlando's down by 3. He gets a poke steal, which he's always been very good at. Couldn't run the ball down in time, got stuck under the rim, missed a layup, was able to get his own rebound, and the Magic had to kind of reset their offense from there. That's a dunk. That's a dunk from a healthy Franz Wagner. Now you're down 1 with a minute to play. I don't think the Magic scored on that possession. They stayed down 3. You got to get all you can from Franz. And honestly, I'd say the same thing about Anthony Black. Anthony Black at 13 points, 5 for 9 shooting, 1 for 4 from 3. Struggled with fouls. It wasn't particularly strong defensively, I thought. Like, a lot of fouls on that too. You could tell, like, they just don't have it. But again, like, this is the problem. Paolo took 5 threes. Franz Wagner took 7 threes. Jalen Suggs took 15. I want to talk more about his game in a minute. Desmond Bane in 17 and a half minutes took 4. You don't mind Desmond Bane taking that many threes. Orlando's shooting 12 for 43 from 3. That's not Magic basketball. That's not how they play. Orlando did win the paint 42-32. They shot 21 of 40 in the paint, so they missed some bunnies. But to get only 40 field goal attempts in the paint, to go 11 second chance points, 5 for 15 on second chance points, you get 38 fast break points. You do a lot of things well. You're able to get downhill a little bit. But Orlando really struggled to get to the paint consistently. Ended up with 30 free throw attempts, but very few paint points. That's a credit to Boston's defense, don't get me wrong, but Orlando got sucked into a three-point shooting game. And that's decision-making. That's not coaching. That's decision-making. Can the Magic do more to get easier shots for them in the paint, like post-ups? Absolutely. And that's been a problem all year. Again, nothing we saw today is new. When the Magic lose games, it's because they shoot 40-plus threes and they don't make any. again, you shoot 43 threes, you have 38 2-point attempts, you're 24 for 38 on 2-point attempts. That's going to be okay. You just don't get enough of them. 24 for 48, so you're 50% on your 2-point attempts. You just don't get enough of them. And especially with a guy like Paolo Banchero, like getting downhill, like he got feet in the paint. He tried to kick out to shooters. They missed. He tried to kick out. He turned the ball over. Everyone was just off. Like nobody was on the same page for such a good chunk of this game. And again, like you missed some key shots, and that opens the door, that keeps things around. And eventually the Magic's defense just had a brain fart of a quarter on a night when they played pretty good defense generally. They had a brain fart of a quarter, and you let Boston see the ball go through the hoop. They made some tough shots. It happens against the Celtics, even when they're undermanned. But you let them get open threes. You let them get rhythm, and that's where you get destroyed. That's how the Magic lose to the Hornets every time. That's how they lose to the Celtics every time. It's the 5 minutes where they kind of brain fart their defense and can't track down open shooters or contest shots. Jalen Suggs was really the one like shining light offensively. 23 points, 8 for 17 shooting, 7 for 15 from three. He was just dealing. He was just making threes, and Boston was happy to let him shoot threes. Again, you shoot 15 threes. That's probably not what you want to see from Jalen Suggs, but he made them, kept them in the game, kept them in the lead. You'd always be able to answer a big three with another big three. So some good things from Jalen Suggs. Did have 4 turnovers, again, just trying to force some things, some silly mistakes there. But he got his defense up a little bit. It's probably one of his better defensive games in a while. But obviously the Magic still need a lot more to get over the top. Again, just so little off the bench. Anthony Black had 13 points. Tristan Silva had 8 points, did a good job getting into the lane, hitting that little floater that he likes to hit. Didn't make a 3, obviously. Jamal Cain, after his big game on Friday, only 2 points. You see the limitations with him. Goga Bitadze had 5.7 rebounds. He struggled with foul trouble as well. Wendell Carter, only 3 points, 0 for 5 shooting, missed a critical free throw late in the game. That made it a 3-point game that Jalen Suggs had to tie. Magic did tie it, so maybe that mattered. Maybe that didn't. Certainly put a wrench in the game. But Luka Garza, look, Magic were tied with 30 seconds to go. They could have bailed themselves out. We would have still had a lot of these conversations. I'm not going to lie. It's the same kind of story. It would just been in a win. Luka Garza made a crazy shot with 30 seconds left. That gave them the lead, and the Magic don't trust that they're going to be able to get another 3. And that's why they took a bad 3. And I still don't know what they were trying to execute coming out of that timeout, that they took that bad 3 by Franz Wagner and then followed up with another bad 3. So here we are. Bottom line, here we are. Magic lost. 113-108, the final. Celtics are the 2 seed. We'll maybe see them. Maybe we won't. Orlando's got to go on the road Wednesday and play their way in. They don't get to play off. They have to play their way in. So a frustrating night for Orlando, one that is frankly not surprising, but nevertheless still frustrating for everybody involved, not just players, certainly fans as well. But we move on. We push on, and we head to Philadelphia for a game Wednesday against the Sixers. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast at Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of my Steal podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. You can check us out on YouTube as well. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. Or check out our Everydayer Club, where you can get access to our ad-free audio feed, plus our Discord server to chat with other NBA and Magic fans. You can find that at lockedonmagic.supercast.com. That's lockedonmagic.supercast.com. As always, thank you for your support. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We will be connecting, hopefully, with Locked On Sixers a little bit later on this week to preview Wednesday's game against the Sixers. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about something. I'm traveling tomorrow, whether to Philadelphia or to Orlando. We'll find out. But we will chat more about the Orlando Magic tomorrow. Rest easy, Magic fans. There's still another game. Maybe that's a threat. Maybe that's not. No, but there's still another game to play, another chance to play your way in and be the 7 seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs. But obviously now a touch harder, having to go to Philadelphia to play a equally inconsistent Sixers team. But that's going to do for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic. This has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.